I visited the birthplace of the great composer Edward Elgar. If you're not interested in my nattering on the motorcycle on the way there, then please forward the video to the section where I actually arrive at the house. Enjoy the video. So today we're going to the Firs Cottage National Trust, the birthplace of the great composer Edward Elgar. So let's jump on the bike and get over there. Somewhere a little different today. We're in Worcestershire today, and it's a much colder day than yesterday. A lot colder. But if you can see here, I've got my heated grips on and my winter gloves. Yesterday, no heated grips. I had summer gloves, nothing underneath my leathers, as in just a t-shirt. Today, I've got a jumper and I've got trousers on underneath my biker trousers. So quite a significant difference from yesterday. It just goes to show just how much the weather can really drop from one day to the next. I think I've got the position of my X3 Insta-X3 camera, sorry, X4 Insta360 X4 camera a little bit better now. Yesterday was a bit experimental and the angle was a bit slanted when I went to Stonywell. It's a nice little bridge there. But today it's looking a bit better. So hopefully it should come out better. Now, Elgar is definitely one of our best, if not the best, English composer. We didn't have too many. I did a video on trying to explain why we have such a severe lack of quality English composers. One Dutch guy actually put a comment on there and said, well, be grateful for the ones you have, because we Dutch have none. And I just kind of sat and thought about it and realised, actually, yeah, the Dutch really don't have many composers at all, do they? At least the English have some. But why is it that we don't have more? Why is it that we don't have like a Bach, a Brahms, a Beethoven? Some have said that had Henry Purcell lived longer, he would have established more of an English composition tradition. So some point to that. Some say sarcastically that the English were too busy fighting their empire wars to have the time to compose. Personally, I'm not really sure what it is. I have been thinking and pondering a little on the kind of Ralph Vaughan Williams type movement, where, and I studied this a little bit in my music degree, where the English composers were rambling and walking around the countryside and getting inspired by their country walks, and that was, fueling their composition. We have The Lark Ascending by Vaughan Williams. And then there's the kind of the First World War type poetry, composers around that time. Then we have sort of around the 30s and after the Second World War, a couple of really good composers, one or two. Well, I can think of one for sure, that's William Walton, who were working for Hollywood. Then we have in England the British composers who weren't really British. One was, that's Gustav Holst, but ethnically he was German. His parents came here. I guess he would class as British because he was, he was born here. In fact, I did another short video on when I actually visited his birthplace, very short one. my dog Teddy with me. But there's Handel, who definitely wasn't. I mean, he was German. He came to work here. Handel's probably maybe overall our best. And some other composers who spent time working here. So that leaves me with Elgar, who really is one of the best of our composers, on a par with Handel, different periods of course. And of course he composed the amazing violin concerto and some smaller pieces for violin, some smaller vignette pieces that are quite nice. La Capricieuse, say it in the French, which is really quite a virtuoso piece actually. And then the Salut d'Amour, which is quite a simple piece to play on violin, really, relatively speaking. But it's a nice one to play with, sort of the correct flair, and quite a sensual, passionate piece. I would have liked it if Heifetz had recorded that. Of course, he recorded La Capricieuse, but I don't believe he recorded the Salut d'Amour, because it would have sounded really nice in his hands. Yeah, plenty of violinists have. Quite a popular piece. So, as I mentioned in another video, I did not know that this place was more or less on my doorstep in Worcestershire. About an hour on the motorcycle. I've taken longer today because I've purposely gone a different route. I'm going to probably take the shorter route back. So it's right here, and I've just not been aware of this place, otherwise I would definitely have come here before. So today's the day when I'll go and discover the house that the great composer Elgar was born in. And it's lovely around here. Different vibe to Leicestershire, a bit more hilly. Very nice indeed. They're just going nice and steady. I was following some bikers on the way, a whole group of bikers out in convoy, and that was quite fun. I've done a lot of that kind of things with my pals in the past. These days I just tend to be riding a lot more solo, and I will be doing the Scotland North Coast tour solo as well, but I'm actually looking forward to that challenge. Just being in my own head, really, having a break from it all. So, as I was saying, going back to the Elgar topic, I've discovered this little gem through just recently rejoining National Trust and spotting this place in their brochure that they sent me. I need to have a good look through the brochure, because sometimes when you're searching on the website for like places near me type thing, it sometimes seems to like miss, it might just target a certain area and miss some, whereas when you leaf through the brochure you get a chance to see them all. So and that's how I came across this place. Could have done with it being a little warmer, but I've got to say it hasn't stopped the bikers from coming out in force today of this UK early May bank holiday weekend. So according to the sat-nav I'm about 5 minutes away at this point, so nearly approaching the destination. The Firs is just a lovely little cottage with some also a sort of a museum to Elgar inside. So I'm looking forward to going to discover that now. There's a lot of bikers around this area. We're 3 minutes away now. The Firs, I see it signed now, so we'll follow the signs. Yeah, I see it signed. Yesterday's property I visited wasn't very well signed, but it was a beautiful... Okay, so there's the Elgar route down there, and they've actually got a violin sign on that side. Yeah, so it wasn't well signed at all, the property yesterday in Leicestershire, but it was a fantastic find. Okay, so straight ahead for the Firs, Elgar's birthplace. And it's been an absolutely beautiful ride downhill, albeit a bit on the chilly side. Okay, yeah, little violin, or is it a viola or a cello? Definitely a stringed instrument on the sign. Yeah, when I was following those biker dudes in convoy, I was hoping to film them. I tried to switch my camera on, but trying to switch the GoPro, the helmet-mounted GoPro on with your gloves on, these winter gloves, it's absolutely almost impossible. I did manage to turn it on, but I managed to switch it off straight after, so... And according to this, we are 1 minute away. Lower Broadheath, birthplace of Serdwood, Elgar, maybe our greatest ever British composer. Let me know what you think. Probably my favourite, and some very fine violinists have tackled his violin concerto, including Jascha Heifetz, and of course Yehudi Menuhin, quite a famous version. I think Menuhin was quite young at the time. With Menuhin, the younger the better anyways. Sounds start to go downhill after quite early in life. Henry Roth says that Menuhin was his own worst enemy. I think something like that. So here we are. We're here. Almost rode straight past it. Welcome to the Firs, birthplace of Sir Edward Elgar. It's not the most secure car park. We are in the country, so we should be good.
The replica of Elgar's study was really interesting. One of the exhibits contained the original score for Elgar's vignette Salut d'amour for violin and piano, a wonderful piece, which is frequently performed and recorded by violinists. There was also a cast of Elgar's hand, and when I compared it to my own hand, seems like he had quite large hands. I had to walk a short distance from the museum across a bridleway to reach the Firs, which is the cottage where Sir Edward Elgar was born. It was a beautiful cottage with a lovely little garden. Elgar's father, rather interestingly, was an organist, a piano dealer, piano tuner, and also, it seems, able to play the violin quite well. He worked in the church in Worcester and also wanted to set up a piano dealing business, whereas his wife, who had grown up in the country, favoured a life in the countryside. This is why the family moved to this cottage where Elgar was born. But the commute into Worcester for Elgar's father in those days proved too much. They didn't have the kind of roads we have today, and coming back in the dark or going there in the rain wasn't the easiest thing. So eventually, after 2 years, Elgar's father persuaded his mother that the family should move into Worcester. However, Elgar did return to the place of his birth quite frequently throughout his life. And once he'd become somewhat of a celebrity, It would have been quite an honour for the residents of the cottage to let him in and to let him visit the house where he was born. I gleaned this information from the guide who was on hand at the cottage, telling me about the history of the place. There was also an exhibit containing Elgar's violin, an unnamed German violin. I was thrilled when the guide offered to play me Menuhin's recording of the Elgar violin concerto, conducted by the great man himself, on a 100-year-old phonograph, which was an example of the exact one that Elgar had. Elgar's one, in fact, was upstairs. The one downstairs was exactly the same, except that it worked, whereas Elgar's original one was no longer in working condition. But it was amazing to hear the old 78 RPM being played on that historic piece of equipment. And there was a rather fascinating music stand that Elgar had one of his guys make for him. It gave me an idea that I could perhaps attempt making a similar one myself, based on that kind of model. Advertisement for a concert at Worcester 1881, Elgar has surpassed his father and uncle to play in the first violins. So clearly, Elgar, his dad and his uncle were all playing violin in the orchestra, and Elgar, it seems, was doing better than his dad and uncle, judging by the order of names on the advertisement. So that was his dad.
Mr. Elgar wasn't. Yeah, that's his dad.
That's his dad and his mum.
Yeah.
So that was my visit to the Firs, Elgar's birthplace, where he lived for the first 2 years of his life and where he returned periodically throughout the rest of his life. A fascinating piece of history, highly interesting, and I'd definitely recommend you go if you get the opportunity. Ciao for now.